explode, spew hot water all over.
He usually pushes the limit.
Oh yeah, that's why they shook.
There he is.
Ready?
I'll tell you. Yeah, it must be time to start, Jim.
7 o'clock.
Pretty close.
I said you usually come 3 seconds.
Closer right on time. All right, good evening, everyone. This is the City of Hannibal Official Council Agenda, Tuesday, December 7th, 2021, Council Chambers, 7 p.m. I'd ask the clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Bowen.
Here.
Welch.
Here.
Beach.
Here.
McCoy.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson.
Here.
Councilmember Franke.
Yes.
And Mayor Hark.
Here. Being a quorum president, I call this meeting to order. Oh, Councilman Dobson.
Glorious God, you promised to open doors of blessing and abundance for your people. We ask that you work mightily in us today, come upon us and cause us to have a productive meeting. Lead each one of us so that we can make fruitful contributions at this time. Enable us to think and strategize in ways that will achieve great results. Purify our thoughts and motives so that each one of us will enter this meeting desiring the good of others and the pleasure of your name. Amen.
Councilman Bates, would you
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council, at this time, I'd ask for motion to approve the agenda as it's posted this Tuesday, December 7th.
So move. Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Now requesting a motion to approve the minutes of the regularly scheduled council meeting on November 16th, 2021.
Motion.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's carried. Now requesting motion to approve the payroll and claims for the second half of November 2021.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion over payroll and claims? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's carried. First item, action item on the agenda this evening, John Twitty, President and CEO of MPUA, and Ewell Lawson, Chief Operating Officer of MAMU.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. My name is Ewell Lawson. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Missouri Association of Municipal Utilities, which is a part of the Missouri Public Utility Alliance. I wanted to first give Mr. Twitty gives his regrets. He was feeling a little ill today. We thought that might be best if he stayed behind, just to be safe. So I'm here today on behalf of the Missouri Public Utility Alliance. I want to pass on my good wishes to more than 120 municipal utilities, your fellow municipal utilities like Hannibal. Most of them here in Missouri, but some in Arkansas and Illinois, and even a few in Mississippi and Nebraska that are part of our association. And years ago, Hannibal leaders made decisions that were in the long-term interests of the community and all of its citizens by forming hometown utilities to serve your community. And those benefits are easy to tell about in just a few words, but their impact is huge. Let me mention 3 of the biggest benefits, and I'll mention those very briefly. And they're local control, affordable costs, and reliability. That's why you have a hometown utility here in Hannibal. So for that local control, it's very important. You've created a local board that runs your utility like a business. That's how you want it to be run, because that's what the benefits will come back. You will reap those benefits back as a community by having that board run it as a business. And so that hometown utility creates jobs for the community, and it makes money that goes back into the community. And I think you recognize that here, even in your general fund here in Hannibal. And also for the customers, it provides affordable costs, and that local control provides that, and it means that rates are determined again by that local board and approved by your council here. And those are decisions made by leaders that are not for profit. It's not someone back in a boardroom in St. Louis or Chicago or New York making those decisions as to how it's going to impact your community. It's you here in Hannibal. And so that's so very important, and it keeps those costs affordable and serves the very long-term interests of the community. And that's what hometown utilities are all about. And finally, I just want to mention a little bit about reliability, because that's very important to the economic development and health of the community. And since its ownership is local, service is local too. So your office staff, your customer service representatives, your field crews are all local citizens or community members in the region, and they're able to provide the most reliable, responsive service to you and your families and your neighbors. National statistics show that response times to occasional outages are faster, because safe and reliable service is topmost concern of your community's utility, and every city that provides those services recognize that ability, and that's a very big economic impact to your community. And to that point, before we get to the man of the hour that we're here to as municipal utilities to recognize, I do want to point out that Hannibal Board of Public Works has been again named a reliable public power provider. Again, a big economic development impact for your community. And then also you should be very proud of your employees, because MPUA is recognizing them as having a perfect safety record in 2020. So that's all very important to your community and the health of the community. But today there's another person we want to recognize that has an important role and has played an important role in Jefferson City. And Representative Riggs is here today, and he represents the 5th District, which includes your hometown here of Hannibal and Marion and Shelby counties and parts of my home county of Monroe, where I grew up. And he's served in the Missouri House since 2018. But one thing that we wanted to recognize him about is during this last legislative session, last February, Representative Riggs was quick to recognize and respond to the impacts on municipal utilities from Winter Storm Uri. He played a key legislative role in his response to this polar vortex, the state's response, at least to the polar vortex, that was to help, and he helped to request and pass a budget measure that created a $50 million fund that municipal utilities across the state could benefit their customers. That fund helped Missouri's not-for-profit, and again, that's why that fund was created. These are not-for-profit utilities. Those hometown utilities managed the storm's historic energy costs, but that fund helped ease the impacts on local utility customers and made it more palatable. We also are recognizing Representative Riggs because of his dedicated efforts to improve broadband development in the state of Missouri. Again, a very important essential utility service that is necessary. And so his untiring work on broadband development, acting as the chair of the interim committee over the last interim session, he's shown a recognition of the important role that hometown utilities can play in this local quality of life issue and utility service. So for that, Representative Riggs' dedication and work ethic and his work for the people of the 5th District have earned him the respect, and I can vouch for this, the respect of his peers in the Missouri House. He's become the expert when it comes to talking about broadband. He's the expert when it comes to talking about the impact that hometown utilities have made in your community and others. And so we're going to recognize him tonight with the Richard E. Mallon Public Service Award from the Missouri Public Utility Alliance. And so please join me in congratulating Representative Riggs for this award. Want to take a picture with us, or?
I'll take one.
Okay. Let's see. Should we do this up by the mayor?
You really want to break the camera?
And Darren, you want to join us?
Everybody understands it's all hands on deck and what we want to do. Just want to provide but we understand, a lot of really great things. Glad to be a small part of that. I just want to say for our utility folks, sort of like the firefighters, the folks who are running down, the firefighters who are running in. When things go sideways, things go bad. So that Sunday evening service call, I made a news engagement. So again, thank you very much. Help lines on. Thank you. Okay, council, next item on the agenda is Amanda Schultz, CPA with Williams Keeper LLC. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amanda Schultz. I'm an audit partner at Williams Keepers in Columbia. We appreciate the opportunity to perform the city's financial statement audit as well as to present our summary report to you all this evening. I believe you all have a printed and stapled copy of the summary report. That's all I'm going to be going through this evening. So this summary report hits the highlights of the individual audit reports that we issued as a result of our audit of the city's financial statements as of and for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020. So that's basically everything else in your blue book that, again, we will not be going through in detail. The first report is the annual financial report, or the audited financial statements. We issued an unmodified or a clean opinion on the financial statements again this year. In our opinion, the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. That is the best opinion that the city can get, and it means that the users of your financial statements can rely on them. Management is ultimately responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements. Although we prepared them, it is a common practice for us as independent auditors to do so. Management did review them and approve them before they were issued. We used our judgment in determining how to audit the city. We performed a risk assessment process by reviewing balances, transactions, processes, and controls, and we focused our attention on areas where the city's financial statements could be misstated. So again, that means that we did not audit every balance or every transaction, but we did enough work in order to be able to give that unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements. The financial statements include two different sets of financial statements again this year. The government-wide financial statements are on pages 13 and 14. Those are full accrual and include all of the city's funds, as well as capital assets, long-term debt, any other long-term liabilities the city may have. The fund financial statements follow the government-wide financial statements, and they're separated into governmental funds on pages 15 through 18, proprietary funds, or the utilities, on pages 19 through 21, and fiduciary funds on pages 22 and 23. The table at the top of page 2 of the summary report summarizes the highlights from those government-wide financial statements as of and for the fiscal years ended June 30th, 2020 and 2021 and 2020. If you look at the audited financial statements themselves, they are not comparative, but there is a section in them titled the Management's Discussion and Analysis on pages 4 through 12 that discusses the changes in the various categories as if a comparative financial statement was presented. I did want to note, and this is not included in the summary report, but because the city had expenditures of federal awards exceeding $750,000, it was required to have a single audit this year. The city had federal expenditures of approximately $1.2 million during fiscal year 2021 for programs that are listed in the Schedule of Expenditures of Federal Awards, or the CFA, and that's on page 81 in the audited financial statements. So because of that single audit, we did issue 2 additional reports as a result. The first is a report on internal control and compliance related to financial reporting. That's on pages 77 and 78. It's a clean letter. It reported no material weaknesses and no instances of noncompliance. And on pages 79 and 80, there's a report on internal control and compliance related to major federal programs that had an unmodified or a clean opinion on compliance and no findings. Just for reference, the 2 programs that we tested as major federal programs, basically where we devoted all of our testing for the single audit, were the Highway Planning and Construction, the TAP funds, and of course the COVID-19 Coronavirus Relief Fund. So, a clean report on those grants. We also issued an auditor's communication letter as a result of the financial statement audit. This letter includes comments about the audit process that we are required by our professional standards to communicate to the governing board of the auditee, and for the city council serves that role. Just a few highlights. We did not note any transactions that we considered both unusual and significant. The city did implement GASB 84, which deals with fiduciary activities during fiscal year 2021. This essentially required the city's municipal court fund to be reported as a separate fiduciary fund instead of being combined with the general fund. So you'll see that separate presentation this year and going forward. GASB 87 that deals with leases, and GASB 89 that deals with accounting for interest costs incurred during a construction period will be effective and implemented by the city next year, in fiscal year 2022. As part of our audit, we evaluated the estimates affecting the financial statements and found them reasonable. The financial statement disclosures are neutral, consistent, and clear, and all of the required disclosures to support the financial statements are included in the notes. We found the accounting records to be in good order, but we did propose several significant audit adjustments as a result of our procedures, and I'll discuss that further when we get to the management letter on the next page. We did not have any disagreements with management on accounting or auditing issues. We did not encounter any difficulties in performing our audit. We felt we received full cooperation from everyone that we worked with, so we certainly appreciate that. Moving on to the next page, the management letter. This is another report that we issue as a result of a financial statement audit. Although the scope of our engagement was not directed towards an opinion on the adequacy of internal control, it was directed towards giving that opinion on the city's financial statements. We still considered internal control as a basis for designing our audit procedures. Our management letter states that based on the limited procedures we performed on internal control, we did not identify any deficiencies in the city's internal control that we consider to be material weaknesses. That's a good thing. However, we did identify a significant deficiency related to preparation of the city's financial statements again this year. As I mentioned on the previous page, we did identify significant adjustments to the books and records used to prepare the financial statements, and those are primarily related to the year-end accrual and GASB entries, since the city's internal books and records are maintained on the cash basis during the fiscal year. We also prepared the financial statements, including the note disclosures. So again, this year, we aren't recommending that the city actually prepare the financial statements, but we are continuing to recommend that if the city's audited financial statements are required to be presented in accordance with GAAP, or if the city elects to continue this presentation, even if it isn't required, that the city ensure all significant adjustments are made to the financial statements before the financial statement audit going forward. We had quite a bit of discussion about this during wrap-up for this year's audit, so Lisa and or Angel, I don't know if you guys want to weigh in. We had some discussions as to whether or not the city is actually required to present these audited financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, or if you guys can maintain the cash basis of accounting for purposes of this report. I don't know if you all have found anything in looking through your bond or other debt agreements, or have made a decision on that for going forward.
We have not made a decision. We're still evaluating.
Okay, sounds good. In addition, our letter does include opportunities for strengthening internal control and operating efficiency that aren't significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. They're really just best practice type recommendations. One deals with billing adjustments. We recommend that the Board of Public Works billing adjustments be reviewed and those reviews be documented. For federal expenditure tracking, we recommend the city ensure that all expenditures of federal awards are tracked and documented throughout the fiscal year. And for information technology, we recommend the Board of Public Works develop and implement a formal password policy and communicate it to all of their employees. Last but not least, in conjunction with the financial statement audit, we also performed a MIRMA audit. The report for MIRMA contains the city's schedule of payroll reportable to MIRMA for the calendar year that ended December 31st, 2020, along with our report on the schedule. We also issued an unmodified or a clean opinion on that schedule. So are there any questions about this summary report? I know I just really hit the highlights of everything. Or any questions about the audit in general, anything like that?
Yeah, I'll jump right in. We identified significant adjustments to the books and records used to prepare the financial statements. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, so consistent with last year's engagement as well, because the city maintains its books, what you all are used to seeing at these meetings, you might be seeing fund financial statement information. That's all maintained on the cash basis of accounting during the city's fiscal year. So when we come in to do the audit and to get the audited financial statements to look the way they do at the end of the day that we opine on, we propose basically all of the year-end accrual entries to establish for the city side, not the Board of Public Works side, but for the city side to establish accounts receivable, accounts payable, fixed assets, depreciation, long-term debt, all of the GASB 68 pension plan related balances, GASB 75 OPEB related balances. So we propose all of those adjustments and kind of maintain a separate set of books for the city to get to the presentation in these audited financial statements.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I've been on council for 7 months now, and this is the first time I've seen financial.
So these probably look vastly different, and this is just a one-year annual presentation. You probably, never seen exactly this before, but that is something that city management is looking into, is if this type of presentation is really required by any bond or other debt agreements. We, as your independent auditor, certainly do not require this presentation. It takes a lot of work to
We
get
do
here.
know it's not required by bond. It's
Okay.
just we're evaluating whether it's best to stay with cash
Sure.
or continue on with.
Okay.
I would certainly like to take your advice.
They don't have any-
Look, I would certainly like to address the significant adjustment. That way we can see more regular financial statements. Yeah, keep going. On page 7 of the actual audit, I'm just unfamiliar with these groupings. I see community development, economic development, and public safety. I'm guessing public safety is fire and police. What are the other ones?
What are community development and economic development?
Yeah, so like what falls underneath that umbrella?
Yeah, those are probably, if you look to this section that you're referring to, this page 7, this is the management's discussion and analysis, which is a very summarized view of the rest of the audited financial statements. So this is really the summarization for the community development, economic development, all of those functional expenses for which there's much more detail in the fund financial statements. So those are all expenses of likely a handful of special revenue funds that the city has, and they're combined and summarized here.
Can you give me a Cliff Notes version?
Yeah, do you know which funds specifically fall under community development? Or, yeah, let me flip back to, it's probably not even going to be, well, there could be some in the, on page 17. This is essentially the income statement for the city's governmental funds, and you can see the general fund is presented as the first column, and then there's the Parks Department fund, which is also presented as a major fund for fiscal year 21. You can see that it has Parks and Recreation expenditures presented here. I'm sorry, that's not going to answer your question because Parks and Recreation are also split out. So you're probably going to have to look to, in the general fund, there is a little over $1 million in community development expenditures. And I don't know what, makes up all of that detail. But there is a good portion in the non-major funds for both community development and economic development, which we'd have to go back to the combining fund financial statements for all of the city's non-major funds. And you can see exactly which funds those fall under. So if you were to flip ahead to,
I'm really just looking for an example of what a community development expenditure would be. I mean, I'm not alleging anything, I just don't understand the umbrella title.
yeah, it looks like most of those expenditures are reported on page 70 in the city's sales tax capital improvements fund. So Lisa or Angel, do you all have a dedicated sales tax
Yeah, it'd be
for these
great.
types of
It
expenditures?
would be great if they could street repair, things like that.
What would economic development be?
I'd have to look into which category that those would fall into. I can get that information back.
Probably Corey's salary.
I don't know that is.
We make a contribution to that, but that would be
Make a
economic
contribution
development.
to the organization. I don't know that that falls under it. I'm thinking that it is more, maybe some part of, well, no, some, I honestly, I would have to.
Yeah, the majority is represented or reflected on page 71 in the tourism fund. About 584,000 of the 603,000 in total. And it looks like there is a dedicated revenue source, taxes and some intergovernmental revenues that fund those expenditures for tourism.
Good.
I'm not seeing anything for cash reserves. Am I to assume that's the leftover fund balance?
Yeah, if you were to look to page 13 is the statement of net position or the balance sheet on a government-wide basis for all of the city's governmental activities, business type. There's also a component unit established for the library. But you can see there the breakdown of net position, which is essentially equity on an entity-wide level. There are amounts that are restricted for investment in capital assets. There's amounts that are restricted for various sources. A lot of it is related to the dedicated revenue sources of those individual funds or governmental activities. But a better breakdown is really starting on page 15. This shows you the fund balance, which is just different terminology at the fund, more detailed level for all of the city's funds, and this is page 15 is the governmental funds balance sheet. So you can see fund balances of the general fund unassigned is about 3.3 million. And you can see the breakdown of the other major fund there and all the non-major funds. And you can see a similar breakdown on page 19 for the business type activities for the enterprise or proprietary funds, the utilities that the city has for the Board of Public Works. Their last line there is unrestricted. Yep.
One thing I just want to point out, I think it's good for us to remember, and it's good for me to do, I'd forgotten, 45% of all the money that we come in goes directly back out to fire and police department. Places to buy. One last question for me, and I'll shut up. What percent of the time do you offer clean opinions for the vast array of clients?
For the vast majority of clients, we do. We try to work very diligently with our clients to get them to that unmodified or clean opinion. It is pretty rare that we were to disclaim or issue a qualified opinion. Yeah, but that's a great question. Yep. Any other questions? Okay. Well, again, we appreciate the opportunity to do the city's audit. Everyone was great to work with again this year, and we look forward to next year. We'll see if we're going to be presenting these financial statements on a different basis of accounting or how they'll look next year. So thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, council, under my name for recommendation of reappointment for a first reading, Airport Commission, Michael Riesenbeck, reappointment for a term to expire September of 2023. Bring this back at the next meeting. There's no roll call at this time. Lisa Peck, City.
Okay. So we have the documents before you for the acquisition of that small portion in lane that we had discussed previously. So that will be the resolution to follow.
Next item.
Okay, next item is, so we had the 2020 census. So it showed a decline in population. So we need to look at the wards to see if they need to if the ward boundaries need to be redrawn. So what I would ask for is permission or authority or to create a citizen advisory panel kind of committee that would help to ensure that the wards stay consistent with the ward characters that's currently in effect. And then these other, the goals that were previously mentioned. With the one person, one vote, no more than 10% variance between the wards, equalization of the population, and respecting the residents' incumbent officials, and then maintaining community interest in the ward. That would be not stranding parts of, etc. And you're better off to take a simpler approach and preserve the current ward map as closely as possible. And it can be hard because you can't adjust the population wards that are not. So there'll be some work that has to go into that. And then MML literature cautions against diluting predominantly minority neighborhoods by splitting the ward boundaries. And so we make sure that that does not happen.
Need a motion to approve a citizen committee?
Just a question. Did the census affect all the wards?
I don't know. I'll have to see that we have to get the shape files of the wards and see. I'm that it will have affected them all to some degree or another. In 2010, when this was done, they had to redraw several of the boundaries, and that was a much less of a population decline than what we're showing now. It's a difference of 808 2010 and 2020. So.
I have a question too. Just out of curiosity, this seems like a fascinating process. How does it work? Is there a formula to follow, or do you just kind of take stabs at it? James laughing, so I'm guessing take stabs at it.
I mean, the 10%.
There's no guideline in the charter or the code. Lisa and I looked at it. It looks like it's been done different ways, different times. So I think your stab at it is probably most accurate. We discussed it. And I think the big concern we had was obviously, first of all, you want to comply with the law, both state and federal. So that means you have to be very sensitive to minority populations and things like that. But secondly, I think the concern is that we make sure that there's citizen input. People are able to have their voices heard. If somebody, it can be upsetting to people if all of a sudden I'm not going to be in that ward, I'm moving to another ward, and giving an opportunity for citizens to be heard and take it in. So I don't think they did it that way the last time,
No.
but I thought it would be better to allow citizens to come in and take part in it.
Cool. I think that's great too. So is this like does this operate like the building commission, for example, where they have their own public hearings, or does it get kind of added on to our stuff?
Eventually, you all will have to adopt the ward maps. So unless you choose to have some kind of panel, there's nothing that prevents that in the charter, but then you all would have to create kind of panel and do it. So the easiest way to get participation that I would like to see from the public is to do an advisory group and then bring back maps. All will have to adopt them. Last time, the process was done in the year following the census in 2010, in 2000. It was 2 years before the maps were completed after the census. And this year there was a delay in population numbers, rolled them out and then come back.
The 2000 happened. So you weren't here, but
I wasn't here. They did it within the year at that point.
So we
but-
could be looking at it.
No, I don't think a few years. I think we'd be able to wrap it up, by at least mid-year of next year. So, but I do think that public input and that piece is missing in 2010. That's why it was passed. So,
I'll make a motion to authorize the city manager to form a citizens committee to look at the board map boundaries.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
And then the final thing I have before you this evening is the appointment of John Hamilton as alternate for a term to expire 2026 for the Board of Adjustment.
First reading.
Now, this is the actual
Second reading,
appointment.
need a motion to approve.
Making a motion to approve.
Second. Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. That concludes your.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Andy Dorian, Director of Central Services.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I just have one item tonight. We have a sale of city-owned property, 1906 Irwin, to Sean and Billy Frick. It's a piece of property that's off of Warren Barrett Drive that they would like to acquire. So, resolution to follow.
Why'd the price go up?
So the 575, we sold last week or last time at 575 as well. We included the closing costs in that. So the $75 includes closing costs because what we were doing is having to go after and get the check on the back end. This way they pay up front and we don't have to chase people down. So
Which means we also don't cash their check until,
exactly. Yep.
so it's already done.
Right. That'll be a resolution to follow. Thanks, Andy. Phyllis Nelson, City Collector.
Evening.
Give us a list.
We have been working with Debbie and Pam. Have been working very hard to get these licenses done. These are the ones that are still delinquent, and they were due June 30th. And at this time, I asked council's permission to send out the letter. You all have a copy of it to the 21 still delinquent. At this time, then they will have 30 days. And there are some that are still being, working with the state or whatever to get compliant. So I do anticipate there being more taken off for the 30 days. But I need council permission to go ahead with this time.
I'm sure I've asked before, but do you have other addresses and phone numbers or
Yes,
ways to
and-
talk
yes,
to these
and
people, I guess?
They are making,
Okay.
Debbie calls them quite often and makes
I
direct
know
phone
some of these
calls.
businesses have either moved or
And,
whatnot.
we sent out certified letters, previously, and these tomorrow going out will be certified. A number of these businesses, I think, have come into town to do just one or two things, or possibly, home-based business that tried it and it didn't work, so, okay, fine, but they just haven't let us know to take them off the list.
So I mean, we are trying our best.
Yes, they make phone calls. And there are 2 individuals that are on the list that have since unfortunately passed away that'll be removed from this listing. Their businesses will be closed tomorrow.
But at the end of 30 days, the list will be given, whoever's left on it, to the police, and they will verify, if they are closed or not. If they aren't. But that requires your all's permission at this time.
Mayor. Make a motion to authorize the city collector to send the final request letter.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. Seems every year they have to put a lot of effort and time into this.
Debbie spends a lot of time calls and updating addresses and Pam also this year, the collector's office.
All right, council, at this time we have before us Resolution 2387-21. I need a motion to have the clerk read this resolution, call the roll for adoption.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Resolution number 2387-21, a resolution of the City of Hannibal authorizing mayor to execute an assignment of right-of-way transfer agreement between the city and the Marion County Commission regarding Shin Lane, a roadway located in the City of Hannibal. Councilmembers Bowen,
Yes.
Welch,
Yes.
Beach, McCoy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson,
Yes.
Councilmember Franke,
Yes.
and Mayor Hark.
Yes. I declare Resolution 2387-21 duly approved, adopted on this day. We now have Resolution 2388-21. I need a motion to have the clerk read this resolution, call the roll for adoption.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Resolution number 2388-21, a resolution of the City of Hannibal authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for transfer of real estate and special warranty deed between the city and Sean Frick and Billy Frick for the sale of city-owned property located at 1906 Irwin in the amount of $575. Councilmembers Bowen,
Yes.
Welch,
Yes.
Beach,
Yes.
McCoy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson,
Yes.
Councilmember Franke, and Mayor Hark.
Yes. I declare Resolution 2388-21 duly approved and adopted on this day. We now have before us Bill number 21-035 as amended. Need a motion to have the clerk do this bill a second and final reading as amended.
Motion.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Bill number 21-035 as amended, an ordinance of the City of Hannibal providing for submission of a proposal, Proposition 1, to allow the City of Hannibal to impose an additional limited city sales tax of 0.5% for the sole purpose of funding citywide infrastructure and remedial improvements to be in effect for a period of 5 years to the qualified voters of the city for approval at the municipal election to be held on Tuesday, April 5th, 2021. Second and final reading. Councilmembers Bowen,
Yes.
Welch,
Yes.
Beach, McCoy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson,
Yes.
Councilmember Franke, and Mayor Hark.
Yes. Declare Bill number 21-035 duly approved and adopted on this day. Well, council, at this time, there's a request to go into closed session with accordance with RSMO 610.021, paragraph 3 and 13, admitting myself, council, city manager, city attorney, city clerk, Debbie White, office manager. That's everything. A motion. Second. Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Councilmembers Bowen,
Yes.
Welch,
Yes.
Beach,
Yes.
McCoy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dobson,
Yes.
Councilmember Franke, and Mayor Hark.
Yes. Very good. Thank you.